Hello my friends, Mia DeBolt here bringing you more transparency in trading. So today is day 3, so I know that I promised day 2. However, day 2 just happened to be something that I logged and it was a very small trade. I decided that because I had 10 days to actually do FTMO and to complete my minimum trade days, that I would just log day 2 as yesterday. And it was just a 0.01 lot trade that I opened and I immediately closed so that I could log day 2. So that was day 2. Today was day 3. I actually took a live trade. So I wanted to break that down with you today. So day 2 and 3 kind of mixed together. I will show you kind of where my accounts ended up for the end of the week, and we can move on to next week, which I will be recording as well. Okay, so I want to share with you the live video, but first and foremost, I don't know about you, but I've been finding that the markets have been really kind of up and down, really sketchy, and really hard to read. So I'm being really picky on my setups and what I'm wanting to see. So I will break that down for you. And apologies for the last video when I had 2 cursors of the same color. I know that was a little bit confusing. So today, I promise I don't have anything highlighted for the actual live trade, but I do have my cursor highlighted for the actual review so that you can see and follow along kind of where I'm pointing. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so like I said, this is my recording and I'm going to play it at double the speed. So first and foremost, I wanted to kind of explain my thought process before I entered. And so I was here for the New York Open, so you can see that the New York Open opened and it dropped down. It took some sell side liquidity, and this is what ICT would call a Judas Swing. And so this is definitely something that I was expecting, was something where it was going to drop down into a discount and then start pushing up. So I was looking at this and making sure that it wasn't going to break structure to the downside. So I was looking at all of this. I was contemplating entering. However, I'm really glad I didn't, because I think my stop would have been hit. So what I did was I waited for this big move, which is the confirmation that it's going to continue up. All right, so this big confirmation, it broke structure. It took some buy side liquidity. However, there's still a lot of buy side up there. And my terminus target for this trade was actually going to be the daily high. So you can see it when I start moving my screen around a little bit more. And that was my terminus target. I had a couple of targets, but keep in mind, this is a Friday. There was no significant news events other than the World Economic Forum all day long. And so being that it's a Friday, it's not the end of the month yet, I was looking to get in the trade, get some profit, bank it, and then close out my trade and be done for the week. So that's exactly what I did this morning. So I didn't wait for terminus, you'll see. So let's just play this. Okay, so pretty soon I'm going to be entering, and that was on my 8 cap. So again, I didn't wait for the return into this fair value gap. I was waiting for that one, and it did end up going and moving pretty quickly away from the fair value gap that it created. So there's an engulfing 1-minute fair value gap that it created when it was starting to break structure. So I was happy with that, and daily high taken, that was my terminus target for this trade. And so I'm just making the adjustments. I'm going to take some snapshots here. That little light bulb was just making sure that it wasn't going to the downside. It wasn't taking the more sell side and going to continue down. So that was what I was determining there. I have this swing, so I'm constantly looking at what premium and discount arrays are and what the most recent ones are and where the discount is. I could have bought here at 50% of this range in this order block, but I wanted to wait for some more confirmations that it's going to continue up. So that's what I'm setting, are some of my targets and some of my alerts. And so I'm starting to reduce my risk. And so because it was kind of a wonky day and a up and down market this morning, I was not quite sure where to put my stop. I was just reducing my risk. I was not ever opening my risk up, but you can see that I do move my stop every once in a while. Okay, so I'm reducing risk. I'm looking at these order blocks and making sure on the 5-minute that it aligns with structure and that I'm pretty happy with where the stop is, and making sure that if it breaks that structure, then it's likely going to continue down and I don't want to be in that trade anyway. So I would be reducing my risk. Another thing to make note of is that I actually reduced my risk for the trade. So I put 0.5%, and the reason I did that again is because we're kind of in a retracement. It does look like bearish, higher time frame, daily structure, and so I didn't want it turning around on me and me regretting my decision. So I was taking kind of a counter trend this morning. So I was expecting more bullishness, and so that's what I was counting on based on the structure and based on the price action this morning. But as you can see here, I'm having to endure quite a bit of retracement. So I think it took like 30 minutes for it to create a lower time frame flag. It was not very comfortable. I like my profits to be taken, at the highs, at significant highs, but I also like my trades to go quickly. So it's something that I know from my personality test. I have some recommended reading that I might create another video just based on my trading style and how I know what my trading style is and what's my actual strengths and my weaknesses. So I can do that, at a later date. And so what you can see here is that it's just retracing, it's doing and rebalancing some price action here from the fair value gap. It's mitigating off of this order block, this 5-minute order block. So it's bouncing off of that, and I want to make sure that it's not going to go lower than this order block, these two candles. So these two bearish candles are that order block that ICT always talks about. And there is some 1-minute fair value gap that it might want to fill. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at and just assessing, because it is accumulating quite a bit and there is a daily open gap. So you can see this line here, this is a daily open gap. And if you see, as I scroll out, I think I flipped to a 15-minute, you can see that this square or this rectangle is actually the daily open gap. So I like to keep old data like that because the algorithm is going to look at that as support and resistance, true support and resistance. So that's something that I always keep on my charts. Okay, so you can see it's just going back and forth, collecting more and more orders. And there's a time when I'm actually moving my stop to a place where there's structure. So my stop would have been better off just leaving it, but I ended up trying to kind of mitigate some of my risk and lowering my risk. So half of that order block, that's kind of where I put my stop. And you'll see that there is a trading error because I do that. So I'll explain kind of what happened here. All right, so the algorithm's repricing down below that short-term low. I'm thinking, okay, great, maybe it'll start running up higher now. And so you'll see that it's not actually going to do that until a little bit later. So I'm having to listen and distract myself. I'm listening to music. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right there. So kind of something that I like to do is just relax and make sure that I'm breathing, make sure that my logical analyst brain is actually taking over while I'm in trades and while I'm marking up trades. Because we all have the gambler, we have the trader, and we have the analyst. And so I want the trader and the analyst in the driver's seat. So this is an ICT-ism. It's an amazing analogy because, when we are emotional, when we're trading, that's when the gambler takes over. And that's when we make really rash decisions. And typically that hurts us and hurts our account. Okay, so again, some more Sell side is being taken just short-term lows, and it's going to be bouncing off of this order block here soon. However, it's pretty deep retracement that I had to endure, so I'm kind of playing around with my stop, making sure that I don't get stopped out prematurely. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking in the process. Okay, so I'm really thinking, oh good, now it's starting to run, now it's gonna go. It's 7:42 on a Friday, so I'd really like to be done with this trade soon. And so those are kind of my thoughts at that time. But we're still in a 5-minute bullish flag. So here we go. We're still pushing down, kind of going back and forth. My stop is in a great place for FTMO. You can see I'm in a little bit of profit. I'm reducing my risk again. So I went back to the original place and then I reduced the risk. So I'm probably at like 0.3% risk at that point. And so if I get stopped out, then that's okay because I'm playing with the cushion anyway. However, I would love for this just to be in profit. Okay, so the algorithm's still going back and forth, and we're just gonna have to wait. You can see the 15-minute, it's about to close, and I'm kind of watching where this is closing. Is it closing and engulfing this candle, or is it just gonna close, you know, kind of in a flag? And so I do see that it's more of a flag, it's not engulfing. So I'm a little bit more confident that we're gonna continue up. It's just a matter of when we're gonna turn around. Okay, so again, I'm moving my stop to 50% of that 5-minute candle. And I also like the 50% of these wicks. So that's where I'm putting my stop. All right, so we're gonna continue. Maybe I can fast forward this a little bit because there's a lot of retracement, and it was about 30 minutes. So even though we're doing this double the speed, you can see I had to endure quite a bit. More than I would like. So I typically like 2 candles and then for it to continue up, but I ended up just staying in this and accepting the risk. So I'm not a super patient person, so I'm wanting to just fast forward this a little bit, but I think it's about to go, so we'll just hold on for 1 second. Okay, so I'm just looking at my FTMO, checking in with 8 cap. It's in the same place, I believe, the same place that I had my stop in the first place. And because the spreads are a little bit different on each, that's the reason that the actual trades look different. And of course I entered at different times as well. Here we go. All right, so I want you to take note of these wicks down here and this order block right here. So we have a 1-minute order block right here, and we're starting to have nice caffeinated moves, starting to move up, and retraces a little bit. Goes down to the order block open, and then bounces up. Okay, nice little profit so far. And buy side, I'm expecting at least this buy side to be taken in this run. And I did have to endure 30 minutes of retracement. So once I started that trade, it was like 30 minutes, and that's a little long for me. I like to see my trade actually start going and moving away from my entry, but of course I don't always get what I want. Okay, so it's making very balanced price action. So it's going up, making a fair value gap, closing in the fair value gap. I don't like that type of price action. I really like to see a fair value gap and for speed away from my entry. So this is making me a little nervous, which is the reason that I put my stop to break even. So I'm putting it at about 50% of that order block that you see. And I am just protecting my risk. So I am not super confident that that short-term high is going to be taken. So that's the reason that I moved to break even pretty early. I would say that's pretty early because it hasn't even broken structure yet. So I'm basically protecting myself from any kind of run down. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking is like, it's also very high. And so the positioning of this makes me feel like it's going to continue up. And so that's also the reason that I start moving my stop down a little bit to just protect those wicks. So you can see that I moved my stop for 8 cap and the funded trader. However, I did not do it for FTMO, and you'll see what the ramifications of that are. So it does go back to that order block, fills, it takes some more sell side before it starts running up. So it tapped my entry, tapped that 1 minute order block, and then started running up. Now you can see I'm already out of FTMO. So because of the spreads, it did take me out and took my stop, but I did have 0.06, so I basically broke even for the day. So that's just something to consider if you do multiple challenges, to remember to move your stop on one challenge and also on the other. So that was my trading error for the morning. I'm not too worried about it. I did actually look at the PM session for the indices to see if I could get 0.5% or more, and it just was continuing to expand. So there's really no entry that I felt very comfortable with, and I was okay with the profits for the day. Okay, so now I'm moving my stop back to 50% of that order block. It shouldn't return there. We're almost closing out. The 15 minutes is expanding up, and I believe the 5 minute broke structure. So that was giving me the warm fuzzy that was going to continue up. I believe my take profit is actually at the daily high. And I was wanting this buy side liquidity, which was like a 1 hour wick. I wanted that to be taken in this expansion. So that would have given me the more warm and fuzzy. It was kind of stalling here. And that was kind of where I was thinking, all right, it might turn around again. So a lot of times they'll take that buy side and then, you know, start tanking if it wants to continue down. So I just was not liking how slow this was going, and it wasn't caffeinated moves. It wasn't making fair value gaps anymore. And so it's a Friday that was still in my head, and quite frankly, I took my profits and ran. So you'll see that I close this out pretty soon, and I'm okay with getting a little bit of profit for the day. You can see that would have been a pretty good place to end there, just with that small little move there. And it didn't take that short-term high, so this would have been the order block that I really wanted it to respect. And so because it didn't respect that much, I think it even engulfed it. It was something that I wanted to close out. So the 5 minute, you can see there's a fair value gap is being closed in, and quite frankly, it was just something that I was not very patient for this morning. So it's okay. I've been on very little sleep for the last couple of nights, and so last night was the first night that I really had some good sleep. So you can see that I closed out with profit, and I was really happy with that, and it's towards the end of my trading day. So I actually clicked it, and 0.58, it just kind of stalled a little bit, so it did have a little lag. Okay, so that was my trade for the morning. It profited me a little bit. 0.58 is nothing to sniff at, so I'm happy that I took something out of the market, even though today was a monster day and I could have gotten 10% out of that one trade. And so had I been risking 1%, that would have been a really nice trade. But even then, I was happy with it. It's a Friday, wasn't really expecting a big range day today, so is something that I will log, and I will make sure that I'm there for that opportunity, maybe take a partial instead of closing out my trade altogether. But I like to be at my desk when I'm trading, so another reason that closing out for the day and being happy with my profits is the right decision. Okay, so here's my screen. You can see the end of my day. It was a great trade. It hit my terminus target even above the daily high, so you can see that. However, I would have had to endure over 2 hours and 10 minutes of sitting here and watching this retrace. I'm just really glad that I got out with some profit today. Okay, and just to recap where my accounts are, you can see here that my FTMO, I am at 3 days logged, and you can see that I have some profits, and I am at 37.33, so just like my MT4 says. And then the funded trader, you can see that I logged 3 days, and so that's great. They actually caught up with me. And so I actually had to go to the help desk because they were having 0 trading days when I had 3. So down here you can see my net profit for the week is 2.52, and I have all of my trades, I believe. So I took one on the 17th, one yesterday, a very, very small one. That was my day 2, and then day 3 is logged for today. So that's great. I have 3 days, and now I feel like that even if I just did 2.5 every single week, I would definitely reach my 8% target and then my 10% target for FTMO. So I have an 8% target for the funded trader. That's what I plan on doing. If not next week, then the week afterwards. And also a 10% for FTMO. So I'm going to plan this weekend, make sure that I'm there for all the economic calendar red folder news, and just trade like I've been trading this week. So I hope that this was helpful and you got a lot out of today's trading. You can subscribe below if you want to follow me in this journey to the 7-figure funded mark. And I look forward to bringing day 4 and beyond to you. Okay, so we'll see you soon. Have a great weekend. Bye.